I am making the Sassy bars recipe, which calls, I'm going to double it because I'm going to make double the recipe. It calls for half cup of butter, 1 cup sugar, 1 cup applesauce, a teaspoon of baking soda, half teaspoon of salt, half teaspoon of nutmeg, half teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 cup of raisins, and 2 cups of flour. And then I'm going to mix it all together. It says cream, sugar, butter, and applesauce. Add in baking soda, salt, nutmeg, and cinnamon. Dredge the raisins and flours, then add both flour and raisin together. Mix it all, and it says a jelly roll pan, but I don't have a jelly roll pan, so I'm just going to be putting it in lasagna pan and cook it. So this is what I'm making. It's a cheap, frugal, easy recipe, and I'm going to use my homemade applesauce. I think I'm going to use the larger jar. There's a little bit of separation. You can see a little bit of liquid in that. But I made this last November. That's like, it says November on that one. The other one didn't. I forgot to put the date on. But last November. So I'm going to use this up because apple season is back. Block. And there's markings here for like 1/4 cup, half cup, 1 cup, so I just cut it in half. It's not an exact science, but it is what it is. So that's a cup of butter. I'm doubling the recipe. So now I need 2 cups of sugar. And then 2 cups of sugar. And there's my applesauce. Pour. 1 cup. I know this is a dry measure, not a wet measure. So, I just don't want to dirty up another one. 2 cups and a little bit extra since it is a dry measure. There we go. That's just cream this all together, so I'll do that. And here it's all creamed. And now it calls for 1 teaspoon baking soda. Half teaspoon, so 1, 2. I'm doubling it, so I'm doing 2 teaspoons. That's only a half, 2.5. Another half. Some more. Just have a hard time getting at the bottom of the box there. So right there, that's 2 teaspoons of baking soda. And then it calls for half a teaspoon of salt, so I'm doing 1 teaspoon. So that's half. And 1. And then cinnamon. I'm not going to measure cinnamon because I like lots of cinnamon. It only calls for half a teaspoon. I'm like, that's not enough cinnamon. So I'm just going to squirt this in. There we go. Lots and lots of cinnamon. I don't think you can have too much cinnamon. Make sure that's nice and mixed. And then it calls for nutmeg. Half a teaspoon of nutmeg. So I'm just going to put about a teaspoon, a little bit more. As you can see with the baking soda, it's making it all poofy. It's already making it rise. Even though there's no flour in there yet. All those air bubbles. Make sure it's nicely mixed in everywhere. Some flour. then this is my raisins. This jar holds about 3 cups. And it calls for a cup of raisins, but I'm doubling it so it's going to call for 2 cups. So I'm going to leave about a cup left in the jar. And then it calls to dredge it into flour. The reason to do this is so that all the raisins don't sink to the bottom of the cake. You want it nicely incorporated within the cake. So you always dredge any dried fruit with the flour first before just dumping it in. Otherwise they'll all sink to the bottom. Or at least that's the theory. Because of course there's always times when that doesn't happen. So there, all the raisins are dredged in flour, and then we pour that in. And mix that up. And I buttered a lasagna pan, which is like 11 by 13, a square pan, and a loaf pan. As it called for a 10 by 15 jelly pan. I don't have one, so I'm doubling it, so this should be enough. So a lasagna pan, a square pan, and a loaf pan. And it's going to cook for about 20 minutes. And I'll cool in the pan. And then I might glaze it with a icing sugar glaze, or just leave it as that. Here's the finished recipe. It looks and smells wonderful. Recipe again. The Sassy bars recipe. I'll put it down below. I just did the cost breakdown of it. Okay. So butter here I get it on sale when it's like $2.97 or $3.97. So I've just put it as $4. And half a cup of butter is a quarter of the butter. So $1. Let's say for $1 for butter. Sugar, I'm saying about 25 cents because I can get like 2 pounds of sugar for $1.50 or less sometimes. Applesauce, free, because I actually picked these apples from a tree off the path, and I cut off the bad parts and I made applesauce with them. And then I got some apples given to me from a friend. But if I was going to use store-bought applesauce, I would say about 50 cents. The spices and baking soda are negligible, like even giving it like 10 or 20 cents max. The raisins, I'd say about 50 cents, because I can get a bag of raisins, I think about a kilogram, for about $2. On flour, I bought 10 pounds of flour for $5.97, and then before that at Costco I got the 20-pound bag for like $15 or so, or less. So I'm saying it's about 50 cents. So total $1, 2, 3, almost $3. So $2.75 to make this recipe that's supposed to make 36 pieces. I think that'd be kind of small pieces. Since I doubled the recipe, I spent under $6. And this is going to be a very cheap, frugal recipe. Great to send to school. It's healthy. Also great when you're running low on ingredients in your house, because there's no eggs, no milk. Ask for this. All it's asking for is butter or margarine, sugar, applesauce, and flour and raisins. You could probably substitute any chocolate chips or anything you want into this. But it smells wonderful. So there's the recipe.